What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Tech Backstage. I'm your host, Eddie Hudson, with our guest today, Bill Santana, the CEO of Nightscope. Bill, thanks for being with us today. How you doing?
I'm good, Eddie. Greetings from Silicon Valley. How are you doing?
I'm great, man. Thanks for taking the time to be on the show. Really excited to talk about what you guys are doing at Nightscope. Love the topic that we're going to discuss today. Um, Before we dive into that, I'd love to talk about, a little bit about your origin story, where you're from, a little bit of your career background, and how you ended up being CEO over at Nightscope. Would love to hear a little bit about that.
Sure. So, by way of background, a long time ago, I was a automotive executive. Spent a lot of time in Detroit, Motor City, and had a wonderful, I would say, actually awesome training ground at Ford Motor Company to, kind of learn about, you know, affordable business structures to market research, a lot of product development work, manufacturing rationalization. It just if you look at my LinkedIn profile during that period, I look unemployable because it looks like I'm kind of getting moved around a lot. So I had a wonderful chance there to get promoted and double promoted a lot. Ended up working, I think it was 12 different positions over a period of about a decade on four different continents. So got to get exposed to almost every element of the business, which was again super helpful training for what we're doing here at Nightscope.
Awesome. And just out of curiosity, so automotive executive, how did you make that transition into robotics and technology?
Uh, Kind of, it's all reference point. I'm not a roboticist in the classical meaning of the word, but to me, these are quote unquote in one sense really easy cars to build. Um, okay, I don't have receipts and no pyrotechnics for airbags. I'm not worried about glass thickness and NVH and all this other kind of stuff. On the flip side, it's super hard because we've basically taken four really difficult topics and combined them into one to build these autonomous security robots that are patrolling across the country. And the four elements are, let's take all the self-driving autonomous technology that's super hard and no one shipped anything at scale. Let's combine that with robotics, artificial intelligence, and electric vehicles. Oh, and by the way, they need to run 24/7, 365 across an entire country in multiple time zones and through multiple, types of weather conditions. And it makes it extremely, extremely technologically difficult to execute.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think you just hit all of like modern technologies, like buzzwords, like AI, machine learning, robotics.
Yeah, but Eddie, the clients don't care.
Yeah,
The clients have an issue, either crime and security or law enforcement. They don't care that it's really hard. They
right.
care that we fix their problem. Like, hey, I was having 10 stolen cars here a month. You put the robot there and it's gone down to almost zero. That's what they care about. They don't
Right.
care how hard it is, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure, and I love that. So, I think that's a great segue into the topic, right? Which is combating crime with robots. So that is, from what I've done my research on the company, like that's what you guys dedicate your mission to is building these robots that help reduce crime. I would assume cities, municipalities across the United States. Tell me a little bit about that and um, maybe how you guys got into that. But I'd love to hear just a little bit about how you guys started focusing on that, and we can
Sure.
go from there.
So Big Brother called, and we were wanting to make sure we fulfill the media talking point that the robots are coming to kill everyone and take everyone's job. So we built all these things to do exactly that. Sorry, I practiced that this morning. I just want
Yeah.
to make sure I got that right. All kidding aside, if you go to nightscope.com/crime, you can see all the wonderful things that the robots have already had a positive impact on society. And the idea basically is, in a nutshell, kind of simple. It's, can we provide the million officers and the million guards, plus or minus, that are patrolling our country 24/7 on our own soil? Can we give them actual capabilities for them to do their jobs much, much more effectively? We today, our public safety infrastructure as a nation is the technological equivalent of a number two pencil and a notepad. We would never dare put a soldier uh, on the battlefield with this lack of capabilities, and it's
Mhm.
structural, and we can go into that if you like. Um, but the idea is, can we have an officer or guard have their eyes, ears, and voice on the ground in multiple locations at the same time? Because it's not popular to say, but there's not enough officers and guards to properly secure the country. So what we'd like to do is have these machines provide and do the monotonous, computationally heavy work that no human can do, and then let the humans do the enforcement and decision making. These are, really smart tools, smart eyes and ears for, again, the officers and guards to be able to do their jobs much, much more effectively.
I love that, and I actually love the reference that you had because right before you joined the studio, I was joking with Carlos because I'm a huge Black Mirror fan, and there's that episode of Black Mirror where
Well, that's the roadmap thing that you wanted to talk about.
right,
Like,
yeah, I
that's
want
the
to talk
future
about the
stuff. Yeah, we
roadmap.
got
Oh,
that
yeah,
all planned too.
that's great. Yeah, we can get into that, but talking about the robot dogs and patrolling and what I'd like to dive into now is a little bit more of the specifics, right? So I think you were just starting to touch on it. I imagine you guys don't have robot dogs that are just hunting people down. But like, let's dive into a little bit more about how are you guys facilitating, assisting officers. I'd also like to hear a little bit more about the point that you brought up where you're talking about, sending soldiers out to the battlefield and sending them out with, best in class technology. Why do you think it is that we're not giving that same opportunity to officers here in the country?
Yeah, I think massively two different questions.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Sorry,
on, on the technology side, so very simply, uh, the robots do basically two things. One more obvious than the other. The more obvious one is the machines have 360-degree high definition live streaming and recorded video at eye level, not on the building staring at the top of your head. The machines can detect a person, can detect the person, can run a thermal scan, treat your mobile device as if it's a license plate. The machines can read several hundred license plates a minute. The officers or guards can speak through the machines as if it's a mobile PA system. So again, eyes, ears, and voice on the ground. That's kind of the key part. The other key part is a little bit more less glamorous, is just providing a physical deterrence. So very simply, if you're driving down the highway and you see a patrol car on the side of the road, I frankly don't care what speed you're doing, your immediate reflex reaction is likely to, at minimal, look down at your speedometer or pump the brakes or both, right? And that's just a natural reflex. Or if I put a marked law enforcement vehicle in front of your home or your office, criminal behavior will change. It's not for dispute. So you see one of these, very large machines patrolling a, parking structure, and you decided that you wanted to go steal a vehicle that night, and you pull into the parking lot and you see a 5 foot tall, 400-pound machine roaming around on its own. There's no one literally sitting around remote controlling it. It's fully autonomous, level 5 autonomy, for those that know the lingo. And the strobe light's going. It says police on the side or security. It's making some interesting sounds. It might greet you. Like, I think I'll steal the car down the street or not steal the car that night. And that's literally what's been happening with our clients. So that was your first question. The
Yeah.
second question is, I love my country. I was born in New York City. Someone hit my town on 9/11. I'm still profoundly pissed off about it. And for the rest of my life, I'm dedicating it to better securing our country. Um, I've already spent 9+ years working on building all this stuff from scratch. We mean what we say. We're pretty serious about our slightly outlandish mission to see if we can make the U.S. the safest country in the world. Um, but the structural flaw in the country is how we handle homeland security, law enforcement, and physical security. So on the battlefield that we are talking about earlier, there's structure and capital, meaning there's the Secretary of Defense. He has a $800+ billion budget. There are numerous massive multi-billion dollar publicly traded companies like Lockheed Martin, a Raytheon, a Boeing, etc., a General Dynamics to build you, new submarine, new jet fighter, new tank, whatever you need, whatever the 2+ million soldiers on the battlefield might need, everything that you could ever imagine, and a lot of stuff that you could never imagine. Those magical superpowers are at their fingertips, and absolutely support all the troops out there for defending our country. The problem I have is, and the country has, is the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. Department of Justice have no federal jurisdiction over 19,000 law enforcement agencies and 8,000 private security firms. There's no one in charge. There's no innovation process. There's no risk capital. There's no one strategizing to figure out, okay, like how do we give the officers and guards kind of more capabilities? And therein lies a massive frustration and the massive opportunity. Highly, highly fragmented. And like when someone shoots up a school or a synagogue or um, a mall or what have you, no one gets fired, right?
Right.
No one's accountable. And that's kind of the big mess that we're trying to fix is, can we, provide some leadership and force a big change in reimagining the public safety infrastructure across the nation.
Yeah, I love that. I love that mission. I think you brought up a lot of really good points right there. So just out of curiosity, I would assume that your primary clientele are law enforcement organizations across the country. Is that correct?
That is incorrect.
Okay.
So for a couple reasons. One is, in my opinion, when you got something brand new and you're a young company, like probably ill-advised to do business to government sales as your first go-to-market strategy. 95% of startups fail, and part of it is market traction. And by the time you get the government to do something, and we'll come back to that in a moment, it's going to be a very long time. So our clients are around maybe half a dozen plus or minus verticals. So commercial real estate, corporate campuses, lots of casinos, lots of hospitals, manufacturing facilities, logistics facilities, some schools. Basically, anywhere you might see an officer or guard patrolling is likely an opportunity for us. So, for example, PG&E, major power utility company, just doubled their order for the number of robots that they placed, and we see a lot of significant growth opportunities as people start understanding that, oh wow, this is not like science fiction. It's not a prototype. These are not demos. Like, they're for real, and they're operating across the country. You've got Houston Methodist Hospital or a Bank of Hawaii, and we started adding recently some law enforcement agencies as well. On the federal government side, I think one of the super exciting things for us that we've been working on for nearly 2 years now is to get through the nightmare cybersecurity approval process with the U.S. federal government. So we're crossing our fingers. By the end of this year, we'll have an ATO or an authority to operate, and our awesome sponsors there at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs will be our initial first client into the federal space. And I think there's a ton of opportunities, just as there are in the local, state level, and the business side is on the federal side of things. We need a complete overhaul of the public safety infrastructure from almost every angle.
Yeah, and that's great. And I love that you were able to just like almost immediately correct me there because, for somebody who's not in the space, you would think that you would start with law enforcement because you're trying to have an effect on crime. But going with private sector and actually going to companies, that's like, now that I think about it, that seems like a really, common sense thing to do because like you said, there's a lot of red tape in government.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of folks on the team that have former military, former law enforcement, former physical security, um, and cybersecurity experience. And in a lot of cases, it's not just the law enforcement side of things, it's just the security industry in total is not the most technologically progressive, I think is probably the polite way to say it. Um, but when people start realizing, like, oh, that robot's not $1 million, it's not a half a million. Wait a minute. I can get a robot for as high as $7 an hour or as low as 75 cents an hour. Like, I have now no excuse to not be looking at this, right?
Yeah.
What I often ask, and it makes people really uncomfortable, is, hey, if your people are your most important asset for your organization, can you explain to me why you're not using the most advanced physical security technology to better secure them? And it gets really difficult when you're sitting there going, yeah, it's between 75 cents an hour to $7 an hour. You didn't want to deploy that technology. At some point, you become negligent, right? It's
Hmm.
almost like I always use the real estate developer kind of analog, which would be, would you be allowed to build a building today without a smoke detector or a fire detector? Like, it would be lunacy. You'd be like, no, you wouldn't be allowed to do that. Okay, well, at some point in the next decade or two, it'll be like, what do you mean you don't have a security robot at your location? Are you like insane? Um, it takes humans a lot of time, but we've got results, and we've got clients that have been with us for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and seeing the benefits. And we'll force the win. It's just going to take a little bit of time.
Yeah, for sure. Those numbers to me are really surprising, considering how technologically advanced the robots that you're talking about are right now. Um, Interested to know a little bit about how $7 an hour really for a crime fighting robot. That can you break that down a little bit? I mean, I don't know if we're going into anything that's like top secret or anything, but I'd love to understand how you guys.
Hey, we're a publicly traded company. You can look up all our stuff online. The ticker symbol on Nasdaq is KSCP. And so $7 an hour. I mean, one way to think about it, they're running 24/7.
Mhm,
So maybe let's start with the first math problem before we get into that. So I mentioned there's a million officers and a million guards, right? They're running 24/7.
right.
You cannot triple shift a human, right? So if you want to cover a post 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, you actually need 4 humans, right? So 2 million divided by 4 is, at any given time, there's only 500,000 officers and guards trying to secure 332 million Americans across 50 states. That math doesn't work. And I can assert why that math doesn't work is, just look at the numbers. Look up the FBI crime clock, and you can see the number of horrifying property crimes and violent crimes that occur every few seconds in our nation. Like, crime literally has a $2 trillion negative economic impact on the US every single year. So I can assure you, the public safety infrastructure that I keep mentioning is broken,
Yeah.
and the communities need help, and the country needs help. And these are serious times for serious people, and we need serious technology to try to help address the issue. Um, but $7 an hour, crudely speaking, you're running 24/7. It's about 50, 60K a year, plus or minus or so. And we include everything's included. So you're subscribing to the robot. You're not buying the robot outright. We don't sell hardware or software. You're subscribing to a service. So everything's included: the robot, the telecom, the software, the deployment, the decals, the whatever you want, the machine shipped out, the whole thing is, everything is included in one throat to choke. We take care of everything, and it's all made in the US. We physically design, engineer, build, and deploy and support these machines across the country. And so the business model is basically, you subscribe to it, and we try to recover the cost of the machine in the first calendar year for us to physically build it. Then the second, third, fourth, fifth year, we're that's where the ongoing operating costs are, but kind of where the profits are for the company. And you got to make sure that this is lucrative and viable for our shareholders. but also, good for society. And, if we're able to hit our long-term mission and keep making a huge impact, I mean, frankly, if you just step back at it and look at it coldly, so let me get this straight. You got recurring revenue for a recurring societal problem, and you can do this profitably and make a positive impact on the US. Like I think that'll resonate. It's not like 332 million people are going to wake up tomorrow morning and everyone will start behaving and the market for crime is just going to collapse, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's not a thing.
Yeah. No, and I agree. And I think, I think it's great that you guys are taking something that, I mean, you don't necessarily think about crime as being a profitable industry, but you guys are, your mission is to help improve safety in the United States and you're making money off it. I think I think that's really great. And I think it's innovative.
you know, to me, we need to do right by the shareholders, but the long term mission is the long term mission. We just want to kind of solve the problem, and if I can, for a couple of seconds, just let the crazy founder, dream a little bit. Let's just suspend reality for like one moment. Let's say we achieved our mission. The U.S. is now the safest country in the world. Okay, now talk to me about the impact on insurance rates. Talk to me about the viability of someone's local business.
Yeah.
Talk to me about funding for municipalities and our education system and infrastructure. Talk to me about the volatility of financial markets. Talk to me about your housing prices,
Yeah.
right? You literally change everything for everyone. And I just kind of find it humorous when we started the company back in 2013. And, mind you, the management team that started the company back then is still the same management team now. And we're determined to make sure that this gets done. And, what I was told back then was, hey, Bill, you're out of your mind. This will never work. What was the second one? It's hardware and software. It's too complicated. Like, you should pick one.
Yeah.
And three, physical security is not an investment thesis. You need to go away. Right. And I just sit back now as like, the statistical probability, and mentioned 95% of startups fail, that you start a company, you fund it, you're able to grow it, and then publicly list it. You're kind of in lottery category on statistical probability of that happening. So it was a very long 9-year chapter to do that. But we've got 2 or 3 decades worth of workload in my head that we've got, and we've got our sights on a big success and a big win for the country.
That's incredible. Excited to see where you go with that. Before I want to dive into the future tech and the roadmap stuff. Just one question that I had, kind of going back to when we were talking about, how you guys are operating and integrating with security. Do the robots, what's the deterrent method? Like, let's say a robot detects something wrong. Did they connect directly to a law enforcement agency? Do they maybe connect back to like a central hub that somebody's manning? I mean, could you walk us through that part a little
So
bit?
yeah, so everyone kind of focuses on the shiny object, which is the robots, but the kind of the real magic's in the background. We have a software application called the KSOC, or the Nightscope Security Operations Center, and that's where our clients can literally get real time data, can do investigations, do historical stuff, and so let's say one of our clients fired someone or expelled a kid or something like that last week, and it didn't go well, and they're worried that person might come back, or it's domestic violence kind of situation where a lot of domestic violence starts in the home and ends up in the workplace, and the person's a little worried that the spouse is going to come over during work hours. So you can literally upload the profile pic of the person, the license plate, and any mobile devices associated with that person. Now the machine's literally on the lookout 24/7, not texting, not sleeping, perfect memory. And if that detection goes off, that alert then can go wherever the client told us to send it. So it can be an email, it can be a text, it can be a phone call, it can go to 911, or it can be an alert on the user interface itself. And then that's when the humans need now to take over. It's okay, I have now information. I need to go, get involved in the situation, de-escalate the situation, talk down the person, whatever a human might be more appropriate to do than a tool or a robot.
Awesome. I love that. Being able to do whatever the client's looking to do. I feel like you're kind of in my head right now because I was out walking the dog last night outside of my apartment complex, and the security guard was asleep at the front desk, and it's like that's
Oh,
concerning.
it's I mean, I feel bad, right? Because it's the security guards. It's a rough industry, you
Yeah.
know. Something along the lines of 100% to 400% employee turnover rates, meaning every 3 months, every 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, you're replacing the entire staff.
Wow.
That's worse than the retail, kind of fast food industry. Like,
Yeah.
so you couldn't keep the human in the job. Maybe there's something wrong with the job, meaning that person doesn't have the tools, they're not well equipped to do it, or having a security guard stare at 32 TV monitors, after 8 minutes are the humans kind of useless. You're that's not what their humans are made to do. But what if you could promote that guard? Hey, um, you know, Stan, these seven robots now report to you. Here's an
Yeah.
app. Now go do your job. Like, oh, like I have tools to do my job. I can
Yeah.
actually do my job. Like this would be really interesting and engaging. So there's a lot of work and rework that needs to be done, and how the nation and communities and just everyday citizens understand how public safety and security and homeland security works, or in a lot of cases, frankly, doesn't work.
That's cool. That's great. I love it. All right, couple minutes left here. I want to shift back to just really quick. What's next for Nightscope and for you guys? What are you excited about on the roadmap? And how do you think future technology is going to impact the services and the robots that you guys provide to your clients?
There's a couple of different things that kind of excited about. Um, I think the first one that comes to mind is much shorter term. It's the Robot Roadshow. So if you go to nightscope.com/roadshow, we have this. I call it the Robot Aquarium. It's not the appropriate name. It's the pod that we have filled with a bunch of robots. It's literally traversing across the country. We've done now 50 stops, I think, in like nearly 2 dozen states, where people can touch, see, feel, and hear. People are tired of getting PowerPointed to death or zoomed out. Want to come touch, see, feel the robots themselves, and it's been an awesome tool for us to get in front of prospective clients, the media, investors, whoever might be, city officials that want to see the technology kind of up close. So we're going to continue the Robot Roadshow. The schedule's there on the website if you want to come check it out.
Cool.
Um, I think one of the kind of long-term things, the way I look at it, is criminals and terrorists pretty much can be anywhere. So if we're serious about the mission, Night Soap kind of needs to be everywhere. So long term, we need to put about 1 million robots in the field to help the 1 million guards and the 1 million officers. And I think if we do that, um, we can put a big dent in the problem. Um, and I think that portfolio of robots needs to be extremely wide, right? From incognito, tiny little thing at a federal courthouse to something kind of massive on a city street or highway. And then they need on the y-axis to be able to see, feel, hear, and smell, and do 100 times more than a human could ever possibly do. And I think if we're able to provide that physical presence and those capabilities at scale, then all of a sudden, big things are going to end up happening, and big changes in a positive way.
That's incredible. Sensory robots. I love that. Being able to smell, hear, like touch. That's incredible. You guys. I mean, that's something that's going to happen. I imagine. I mean, it's coming.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, today there's a lot of stuff on our roadmap of things to do. It's not science fiction. I mean, it's literally cash, people, and time,
Mhm.
and we can get it done. Like I don't know, one that we keep kind of working on and off because we're operating these machines across the country, and they're kind of taxing in terms of amount of workload to get the fleet built and up, especially during a pandemic, which has been a complete nightmare. Um, there's no reason a machine can't learn to learn, someone yelling help, glass breaking, or a car starting, or a gunshot, right? That's technologically, there's nothing stopping someone from doing that. There's been some good progress of folks doing it. It is a difficult physics problem. It's not an acoustic problem, but it is doable. So having place that sensor payload on the machine, there's if you have enough microphones, you can actually localize the sound, meaning which direction did it come from. So there's stuff like that just a lot of work. As I mentioned, there's a few decades worth of stuff that we need to get done.
That's awesome. Well, Bill, I think we're just about out of time, but I'd like to thank you for taking the time to out of your day to come here and talk to us on Tech Backstage. Excited to see what happens and what's next for Nightscope, and
you and me both.
Yeah, seeing one of your robots on the streets one of these days. Before we take off for the day, Carlos, do you want to come in and just give the announcements for the next shows that are coming up?
Absolutely. Thank you, Eddie. So it looks like this week a lot of our guests are taking advantage of the last days of holidays and the breaks and the summer vacations before the kids go to school and everything. So we don't have any more shows for the week, but next week it's packed from Monday through Friday. So we have a full week ahead. The next couple of weeks are going to be crazy. So Monday we're going to be speaking with Graham Collins from QuotaPath. Tuesday we have Shahid Jivani from Logic's Board. We have Wednesday with Nadia Adams at Blue Agilis. Thursday we have Chris LaFarley from Tatum. And finally on Friday we have Anand Diravidyam from Airs. So awesome. We have a full week, and the next couple of weeks just look pretty similar to that. This awesome. One. Stay tuned, folks.
All right. Thanks, Carlos. Bill, thanks for being with us again. Hope you have a great day. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, everyone. Be safe out there.
Yep.
Thank
Bye.
You.